The harder you try to make people respect you, the less they might. Sounds unfair, right? You work harder, you reply faster, you say yes to everyone, you constantly prove how useful, successful, or likable you are, and somehow, people start valuing you less. But why? The answer begins with a strange rule of human psychology. People don't always value what is most available. They often value what feels difficult to obtain. Think about two people. One is always available. They reply instantly, cancel their plans whenever you need them, constantly ask, "Are we okay?" The other has their own life. They care about you, but they don't desperately need your approval. Who seems more valuable? Most people instinctively choose the second person, not because they're better, but because their behavior communicates something powerful. I have value even when you don't give me attention. And this is where the problem begins. When you try too hard to be liked, respected, or accepted, you accidentally send the opposite message. You show people that their approval has become more important than your own. And people notice, maybe not consciously, but they feel it. Imagine someone entering a room and immediately trying to prove they're the smartest person there. They mention their achievements, they name drop, they constantly interrupt, they laugh too loudly at their own jokes. They need everyone to know they're important. At first, people may pay attention, but after a while, something changes. The harder they try to look important, the less important they appear. Why? Because confidence doesn't need constant evidence. A person who truly owns a luxury car doesn't need to spend every conversation explaining how expensive it was. A person who truly has options doesn't need to remind everyone that they have options. And a person who truly respects themselves doesn't need to beg other people to respect them. But here's the part most people miss. Trying too hard isn't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like being too nice. You agree with everything. You never say no. You apologize even when you did nothing wrong. You change your opinions depending on who you're talking to. You become whatever someone else wants you to be. And you think this will make people value you. But psychologically, it can create a different reaction. If someone believes you will always be there, they stop noticing your presence. This is the same reason people often ignore something they have unlimited access to. Your attention becomes ordinary, your kindness becomes expected, your availability becomes invisible, and the moment something becomes guaranteed, people often stop treating it as special. But don't misunderstand this. The solution is not to play games. Don't suddenly ignore people to make them chase you. Don't pretend to be busy. Don't become cold, because fake unavailability is still desperation of wearing a costume. The real shift is much deeper. You stop trying to control how everyone sees you. You stop explaining every decision. You stop defending yourself against every misunderstanding. You stop performing, and you start living. This is where something strange happens. When you no longer desperately need people to approve of you, your behavior changes. You speak more honestly. You say no without writing a 5-minute explanation. You walk away from conversations that constantly make you feel small. You stop chasing people who keep showing you they don't want to be caught. And suddenly, people notice. Not because you became more impressive, but because you became less dependent on their reaction. This is one of the most powerful forms of social confidence, the ability to remain yourself, even when someone else doesn't approve. Think about the people you naturally respect. They're usually not the ones begging to be respected. They're the ones who seem comfortable with themselves. They don't need to win every argument. They don't need to be the funniest person in the room. They don't need to make everyone like them. And, strangely, that makes people want to know them more, because mystery creates curiosity, and self-respect creates distance from desperation. But there is one final trap. Sometimes you try too hard because deep down, you believe you are not enough. So you keep proving your intelligence, proving your loyalty, proving your success, proving your worth. But here's the truth. The moment you constantly try to prove your value, you give other people the power to judge it. You turn your life into an audition, and suddenly every conversation feels like a test. Every unanswered message feels like rejection. Every criticism feels like a threat. And every person becomes someone you need to impress. But you were never meant to live like that. The most respected people aren't necessarily the most impressive people in the room. They're often the people who don't need the room to confirm who they are. So the next time you catch yourself trying desperately to be liked, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I stop? Because that answer reveals everything. You don't earn respect by chasing it. You earn it by becoming someone who doesn't abandon themselves just to receive it. And sometimes, the moment you stop trying to prove your worth is the moment everyone else finally starts seeing it.